So everybody is very welcome to Mayo Cafe on Pope's Quay, a beautiful historical part of Cork City. And this is our friend Liam's Cafe. So our first guest is Damien Quinn. All the boss.
Hi guys.
Welcome, Damien.
Thank you guys.
Damien has an interesting story and he's doing great work as well. So we're going to chat for about a half an hour. We'll do a 10-minute break for a cup of coffee and then we'll do a half an hour and we'll have a discussion, questions or whatever at the end. Is that fair enough? Nice and casual, nice and relaxed Friday night. How's the farm?
Yeah, good. I just came straight up from work.
From Tuam?
Well, from Tuam. I left Tuam.
No water, no electricity, nothing?
No, we had a fair old battering now from the storm now, in fairness. The whole town was in darkness for about a week. Yeah. We just got water back.
That was before the storm?
Just before the storm. I know, Tuam's a great town. We'll have to bring you down. Tuam has a lot going for it now. So we, on the way down, my partner texted me. She was overjoyed. The water is back, so we can have showers at home now. But it was a rough old week for everyone now. Some parts of Galway aren't going to get anything back until the 5th of February.
They'll be lucky at that.
But when all the new builds now, we're lucky enough to be in the new build, it's all electric, which is great until you don't have electric. Yeah. And then you're looking for the fire, aren't you?
Yeah.
Do you know? But do you want to take us right back there, where you're from, what it was like for you growing up, and just the context of what made you?
All right. Well, look, I suppose for those of you that don't know me, I'm Irish originally, and I moved to the UK with my family when I was about 2. I had an Irish accent as a small baby, and everybody knew me as Irish then growing up, We moved to Manchester, and I would have been, I suppose, very straight A, kind of shy, geeky, all that kind of stuff. Really, really interested in education, and kind of a bit of a loner as well, I suppose. In early teen years and that type of stuff, I always felt like I didn't fit in, and it was problematic for me. And then I was a bit of a target then as an Irish young fella in Manchester. And then what happened in the family then? The whole family unit broke down, and we moved overnight. We packed everything into a bag and we moved overnight back home to Ireland, where I was an English teenager in town. And then I was a bit of a target then for being an English young fella around the place. All of that really, that whole identity crisis led to a particular type of behaviour. And as I said, the family unit broke down. I became responsible for a household at the age of 14, and I a younger brother as well. And I looked for an escape, and I found one in drugs and that type of thing. And I spent the best part of a decade then living that life. And
what was Manchester like? Was the big Irish community there? Was it a house or flats, or what was it like?
So we were living on an estate. There was a fairly good Irish community there for older people, but not so much for younger people. So it'd be more kind of cousins and that type of thing. Yeah. All of my friends were Manchester born and raised, But I do treat Manchester as my home away from home. I go back around the block from time to time.
United or City?
United, I think you remember that.
I just wanted to get it on the record.
Yeah, but in fairness, I've lost touch with all of that stuff lately. I suppose I don't really have time for following anything now with all this kind of going on.
There's not much to follow at the moment, anyhow.
Unfortunately, no.
So it was when you're talking about going to Manchester, I'm thinking about Shane McGowan. Being Irish in London and kind of not fitting in, it must be very difficult because when you're a child, you don't want to stand out amongst your peers. You don't.
No, you want to belong, and that's one of the biggest things. When you feel like you don't belong, then you behave a particular way. And I always say it: once you find belonging, you find yourself. So belonging is a very, very important thing to me, and it's something that at that age I didn't feel. The place I found belonging was with my peers taking drugs. Because we're all in a corner somewhere, kind of, do you know what I mean, in the same state or whatever. Yeah. And that was, unfortunately.
So school would have been difficult as well for you, would it?
School?
Yeah. Did you find that difficult, or did you enjoy parts of it?
Well, when I came to Ireland, there was a step up because, I was straight A's in England, but it isn't as advanced as Ireland. When I came to Ireland, I went from, say, the equivalent of the junior cert back to second year, but I was really, really struggling in second year because it was a step up. So messing in school, not fitting in school, struggling with education, which I really, really liked. So that was a perfect recipe for,
How would you compare the schooling in Manchester to Galway?
Well, look, school, I think the Irish school system is more advanced, I do. But like in England, I found it quite easy, is what I'd say. Like I never had any difficulties learning in England, but I had them in Ireland. And I couldn't understand why I had them because I never had them before. But like here in Ireland, like I suppose like what I have learned is not all learning happens in the classroom. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like when people learn in different ways. But look, education is a huge part of my life. You know that anyways. Like I'm always kind of, that's my addiction now, like learning. And every day is a learning day in my book. Anyways.
So when did you start going down the wrong path?
Yeah, so it looked like so. I remember running out of the house the same evening, really bad situation at home. I won't get into it too much, but like I remember running from the situation, looking for drugs. So local dealer was available. He gave me what I wanted, and that was it, you know. And then I that was my escape. Everything went. No, in fairness, like I was always working as well. Like so, I had like. Jobs in manufacturing, like I was bouncing around from job to job. I was able to fund it, like, and the only reason we were left alone as young children was the fact that I was working and the fact that my brother was attending an alternative to mainstream education. But other than that, like, I remember we were about 8 months into the situation and care services came round the door. It was a pure fluke. I got stoned the night before and I got onto a cleaning bus. Yeah, you know, mad cleaning the house.
One of them ones.
And I cleaned the house from top to bottom. And
what did you take? I guess something for home.
Well, I cleaned the house from top to bottom anyways. And the next day was payday, so I went down and I got the shopping in, and I had the fires in the stove or in the range and in the sitting room lighting. And when the knock came on the door, so it was some woman from some sort of family support or something like that. So I said, come on in. And I brought her around, showed her the house, spotless, fires on, cupboards full. I said, we haven't needed you for the last 8 months. We don't need you now. Thanks, but no thanks. And I shut the door, like, and that was the only time anybody kind of really reached out to us.
What age were you then, Damien?
15-ish. Yeah.
And that was the only time that they reached out?
In the 8 months of the situation we were in, yeah. So look, we were kind of gone then. Like that 8 months, we were gone too far. We had our independence, we had our way of doing things, you know, and it definitely wasn't the right way. We could have done with a bit of guidance, but
she survived.
We survived. Look, yeah.
When did the guards enter your life?
Oh, they were on the scene already at that stage. So my first experience with the guard in Ireland, I'll never forget it. Myself and my brother, we were cycling down the hill. It was kind of dusk. And this guard stepped out from behind a lamppost. 39 steps was his nickname, he's a big tall fella.
39 steps?
39 steps, he's lanky, like, he was lanky. So, but he stopped us and he said, where's the lights on your bike? And we snickered at each other because what's wrong, like? And he gave us a clip. And that was my first experience with the guards, and so obviously I had a real kind of a disliking to that. But, like, it was all stupid stuff, like, we were getting into scuffles, fights, that type of thing in school, and you know, we're trying to defend ourselves a lot of the time, trying to defend ourselves, and then obviously we were getting stopped and searched for drugs because we were selling them and that type of thing.
Actually, it's interesting you bring that up because the guest we have for the next one is Sean Redmond.
Okay.
And he does a lot around youth justice, but he does a award-winning research really about how young people get caught up in crime and how difficult it is for them to get out of it. You know, if your peers are doing it, your family is doing it, people on the street is doing it, and then you're under pressure, and it's like it's easy for people on the outside to look in and say, "Oh, why don't you just go to school and go to the GA like and be a good boy?" You know what I mean? But children are under a lot of pressure, aren't they?
Yeah. Well, look, in fairness, like I'm not going to say it was all bad. Like, you know, I did enjoy anything I do. I like to do it very, very well. And you know, I take a lot of pride in my work. I took a lot of pride in that work as well.
Look at that for the joint, lad.
Yeah, I was quite good at that too. Yeah. But you know, like I was crafty enough. Like, and sure, look, it was wrong, but like in other parts of the world, it's legal. Like, do you know what I mean? Yeah. I know it's not legal here. I know it does lead to bad outcomes for people, and in the end, the life was a horrible life to live because you're always looking out the window, you're always checking, you're watching over your back, you're changing your numbers. You know, it's just a.
But if you sat here now and you had a cup of coffee and you looked out the window, there's another coffee shop over there on Bridge Street, which is around from you. You look around and you can see the people in active addiction. They're always in a rush. They're always on the phone. It's like, but you know what it is? How I interpret that, and having lived a bit of it, you create so many distractions to just take you away from how shit your life is. Because if you don't have that drugs and you don't have all these distractions, the reality of how bad your life is like, you know, that's why they create these meanings, you know what I mean? And within that little subculture then there's politics, there's leaders and there's acquaintances and there's a whole ecosystem around it, do you know what I mean? But if you're observing from a coffee shop, you can see the madness and the manic.
You can only see it when you're out of it, though.
Yeah.
You can only kind of see it when you're out of it, like, you know, you don't see it when you're in it. Yeah. Many a night I spent off my head talking to the fridge in a house party, wired, do you know what I mean?
Trying something deep there.
Mad stuff, like, but fucking...
I hope to get this now into Oberstown, right? And the target group for the CART funding we got is for 16 to 24-year-olds. So if we can think about that period of your life, when you're coming out of being a child and becoming a man, what was it like in that moment? Was there relationships? Was there employment? Was there prisons? What was it like?
Well, I became a dad at the age of just gone 19, and like, I suppose I was only talking about this relationship today. A probation officer was actually the one good male adult in my life. He would be like, he wasn't going to have children. He wasn't in a normal relationship. Is the way I describe it. He was in a different type of a relationship, but I knew I could talk to him about things. And I was struggling with fatherhood. So, like, at the time, my child, we were shouting at each other. That's the way we were communicating.
Like brothers.
Yeah, so there was something seriously wrong, and it was bothering me, and I brought it to him, like, and he told me to watch Nanny 911 on the telly, and he said,
"Put you off, kids."
But he said, "Watch what they do." He said, "Watch how they get down onto the same level and eye contact and all that stuff, and lower the tone and be firm." And so I started practicing that, and within 2 weeks it works, right? So absolutely, like, transformed our relationship. That baby I'm talking about now is 22, and he's living with his partner in Galway, and he's doing all right for himself. But so, like, there was no real kind of one good adult, but the probation officer turned out to be it. My problem at the time was I didn't understand the relationship fully. So, like,
he was a part of the legal system.
He was an ear for the guards. In my head, like, I couldn't tell him. I couldn't tell him what I was really up to. I'd tell him what I felt he needed to hear. And I'll never forget the day when I came back from being caught. I got caught with drugs and that type of thing. And I'll never forget the hurt in his eyes when I gave him the news, you know, because he couldn't believe it. You know, he was absolutely flabbergasted, like, because I would been telling him all this stuff, and he was physically hurt or emotionally hurt,
disappointed.
And I'll never get over the look in his eyes. There was learning in that for me that day. So I knew then that he was there for me, but it was too late. So I always say, like, role clarification was something that was always missing. You know, like,
elaborate on that for us.
Role clarification. So, like, instead of I'm supervising you now, I'm keeping an eye on you, I'm keeping tabs on you. If he had the conversation, it's I am here for you, to help you, befriend you, get you employment, get you on track. That's my role. If he had said that to me, I might say, yeah, I could do with that help.
It's like, I know you're mandated here by the court, but I'm not here for the judge. I'm here to help you.
I'm here to support you. Never mind what's going on with the courts. Let's look at your interests and all that kind of stuff, and let's see if we can figure you out a way forward. But it was always kind of a supervisor. Everybody had him down. Oh, sure, he'll hang you in the courthouse. Like, he'd give you a bad report, so you just had that mistrust of and. So I think role clarification is a big piece that's missing. Like, you know, and if younger people were able to understand better what the supports and services are that are being offered, they might tap into them a little bit better. For example, like, I was at a CFSN meeting, a child and family support network meeting in Galway yesterday, And one of the things that came up was about consent. And you have to have an adult's consent to engage under the age of 16 with a mental health service. And I thought back to my time when I was 15, when I had no adult to ask for consent. Yeah. How would I get access to that service? Like,
what happens then?
Sure, there's no consent. So, like, so
probably need a social worker or something.
Yeah. But it kind of took me aback, like, so. I think all of these things create barriers, and there's no need for them, like,
Yeah. Do you know what I think? How difficult it is for young people. Do you know, like, if you're from a council estate, it doesn't matter if it's in England or Ireland, they're very similar cultures.
Yeah.
Like a mono culture, and the frame of reference is narrow. It's a hoodie, Air Max, football, women, that's drugs. You know, that's the kind of, anything outside of that then is gay. You know, that was the way it used to be. And it's very narrow. And you know, like, if I think of, in my class there was people that was creative, or they were into space, or they were into dinosaurs. They used to get roasted.
Yeah.
But it's sad when you think about it.
I was one of the latter there now.
Dinosaurs.
And space and all that kind
You'd
of
be called
stuff.
dinosaur man now if you went to the man. But when you think about it, like, it's so narrow, and anybody outside of that, then they can stand out and get bullied. But you know the beauty then of when I went into college for the first time, and I said it a lot of times, when I seen them over there playing Quidditch, running around with their brooms between their legs, throwing paper balls in through a hoop, and I thought, you know what? First of all, I was thinking, you know, what the fuck are they doing? And then I was thinking, you know what? At least they're allowed to be themselves, and they're not afraid of being slaughtered or robbed or bullied, you know?
Yeah.
But it's just, I suppose it's hard, if you're from certain areas, to just really be who you are. And it's only until you get adult and maybe you can then be your true self. But there's a lot of young fellas, when they're in that kind of, in that environment, they can't really be themselves. And they might go through life then taking on an identity that mightn't really be them. Yeah. And they might never really find their true self, because they're caught up in drugs and courts and prisons, and they never break that cycle. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, look, in fairness, like, it's something I always say when I'm asked to give a bit of advice to young people, like, never feel like you have to fit in anywhere. Just be yourself, like, just be yourself. It's a selfish program, but you have to be yourself, like, and then the right people in time will gravitate to your vibe, like, you know. People go around trying to be this or trying to be that. Like, you're at nothing, like, you're wasting your time, you're wasting your life, do you know what I mean? Just be you, and just people will gravitate to you. And yeah.
But it's hard for the mask. When you're carrying that mask for so long, it's hard to kind of shift that. Like, it takes a lot of work to move from A to B, especially when you're in, you talked about the environments that we grew up in, similar to yourself. You have to be a certain way, and especially if you're growing up in a family and they're all doing the same thing. Even though, like, for my own self now, when I was in school, for example, or when I left school, I didn't spend very long in secondary school, but I used to be looking at my neighbours going to school, and I used to be thinking, like, if I was in a group of people, I'd say they're gomies. They're pure monks going to school, but really I envied them. I wanted to go myself, but when I was in certain circles, that I had to put on this kind of persona, and it's hard to shift away from that, as I said, especially if everybody around you, your family members, and it's not that they're wrong, it's just that they're doing the same thing. It's hard, and to say that to a young person, you know, there's a lot of work needs to be done to get from, you know, to kind of move from that into a new space.
Well, definitely, though, like, about planting the seed as well, though, like, you know, like, if they don't, like, get that idea to begin with, they probably will never shake that identity. Like, you know, I done the whole thing walking down roads with big pit bulls and chains and jewelry on, and
Gillian is still doing that.
Yeah, but like, but I remember I had this dog, like, and he was a vicious dog, like, I shouldn't have been walking him at all, and he pulled me down the road fucking thing anyways. But, like, you know, I got into that whole look, and I thought that was, you know, what I should be doing, but it wasn't me. Like, that's not what I want to be doing at all.
But you were doing what you thought you should be doing.
Yeah.
What the boys, but you know, the boys might
programmed by your environment, kind of thing, you know.
But when you talked about the identity thing a while ago as well, like, I remember when I'm in recovery, and we were talking about that earlier. I'm 18, coming up to 18 years now, away from all of that, and mental chaotic story before that. But even making that transition from addiction into recovery, and then trying to change from the inside out, even that was a whole struggle, because the track suits, the big earrings, and I love my big earrings, don't get me wrong, but it was making that transition from one to the other, and then questioning yourself, and it can be very difficult. And then when you move from that then into being a professional, then that's a whole other area then as well, where but for me anyway, how am I supposed to look? How am I supposed to sound? How am I supposed to dress? It can be difficult.
Well, I suppose maybe from a woman's point of view, it might be difficult around kind of that type of thing. And but for myself, like what I would have done, like I just when it got to the say the pinch point, I just said I have to alienate everybody here, and that's what I did. I absolutely alienated my entire network because they all enabled me.
Yeah.
No, regardless of how cheeky I was, regardless of what I did wrong, they still kept enabling me and all this kind of stuff. And in the end, I just had to completely fall out with the whole lot.
Yeah, I have a good example of what Gillian is talking about there. Do you know, when you first come into recovery or when you get out of prison or whatever you're doing, you're trying to move into a different life or you're trying to turn your life around or whatever. But there's the remnants of the old life is still kind of with you, you know. But I remember I was working on a C scheme in Simon.
Oh yeah.
Cleaning the offices, that was it. And I remember I forgot something in there, I left something in there, and I went back in to get it. I was on my day off, and I had a Nike Air tracksuit, you know, head to toe on Air Max. And when I went in, I bumped into the HR. He says, off to the gym, yeah? And I says, yeah. I wasn't like, and then I realised, no, I kind of need to move away from this type of style, you know what I mean?
I still wear all that stuff myself.
I know,
like,
that's the culture we're from.
yeah.
But it's just, you
comfy,
go into
like.
the
It is
office,
comfy.
like,
Yeah, it's
you wouldn't
comfy.
go into work with it, like.
I do. I go into the office. Like I'm the only person in the office walking around in trackies when I get away with it. Like obviously, I put on the shirt and the pants if I have something.
You need to,
If I'm meeting the likes of you two,
Yeah.
I'd have to dress up a little bit. Yeah.
Talk to us about the turning point for you, how you broke out of that cycle that you were in.
Prison. So like prison was my way of escaping a mangled mess of a life, like, you know. And it's interesting when I take that view because like I was really embarrassed about the whole situation I was in the community, sleeping rough. I remember sleeping rough outside the courthouse one day, going in there and literally physically fighting with Gardaí in the courthouse. And, you know, just wanting to go to prison. You know, that was
What age were you at this stage?
I was 24 at this age. Like, you know, I see no way forward, only prison. Get in, take some time out,
Respite.
and then move forward. Like, and there was nowhere to turn. That was the only.
But that saves a lot of people.
Yeah, it was the only
And it
way
would have
forward.
saved me many times too. You know, having that kind of respite, going
Yeah, a
into
break
prison
from the
and
madness,
a break
like.
from the madness, yeah.
But like everywhere, like everybody like that mattered. Like they just didn't want me around and that type of stuff. And that's a hard old bitter pill to swallow. Like, do you know what I mean? Because I was always generally a nice guy. Do you know what I mean? For the most part, I think I was. But you know, when you see people that they just don't want you near, they don't want you around. Like, and the shame of that. Like, so. Anyways, prison then, like, obviously, after the fight with the Gardaí that in the courthouse, it took a month to recover from the injuries. And it didn't work out well anyways that day, but I when I got to prison, like, the first thing I did, like, I got out onto the landing, got my name down in the education unit, joined the gym, walking on the treadmill, got into the computer class down with Mrs. Burns. She's a governor now of Castlereagh, and was working in the print shop. Like, I was doing a bit of admin, and like I said I'd do my leaving cert now, I'll do some college work now. I said I have 3 solid years here now just to get as much under my belt to start again. So that was kind of the turning point. Now
You had a prison break.
yeah, well, yeah, that was yeah.
Don't tell us that story because it's not how you imagine a prison break to be. It's very civilised.
Yeah, so they moved me to this open prison in Loughnhouse in County Cavan. I did not want to go there because I knew it was going to be, I'd be exposed to things. I didn't want to go.
Yeah.
It wouldn't work for me. So I went into the governor the morning I got transferred. I said, please send me back. He said, no, give it a try. He said, sure, look. He said, they love it up here. I said, well, I don't love it up here. I said, I'd rather just be in the closed prison. So I tried it out anyways. I tried it out for about a month, and then Man United beat Chelsea in the 2008 Champions League final.
The glory days.
Yeah, so I said I'm going to take a weekend for myself. So I left a little note in my room saying I'll be back on Monday. Please don't touch my things. And I did. I came back on Monday, and they just brought me in, threw me into the chokey, and sent me back to Castlereagh, which is what I wanted.
Which is what you wanted, yeah.
Yeah, so I got to finish then my education in Castlereagh. But what happened then, like, as I was due to get out, it was coming Christmas 2008, yeah, and they 2009 I got out. So funding was withdrew from Harrison House and it was closed, and that was part of my release plan, that I would be released into
Is
treatment.
that like a half a house?
No, it's a treatment centre for addiction.
Oh, very good.
So that was part of my sentence, that I'd have to go there after my sentence. But the funding was withdrew and the centre closed. So I got the map of Ireland in my cell and I threw a felt pen at it and I hit Athlone. So I said, I'll go there. So
Good shot right in the middle.
yeah, slap bang in the middle. So I said, I'll go there. So that was my plan. So my re-entry plan went from a treatment centre to a bus pass and a B&B for one night. Went to a local man who was an auctioneer, really nice man. And he had flats coming on stream, and they just needed to be floored. And I could do that. So I said, I'll do that for you if you give us one of them, like, you know. So I floored the three floors for him, and he gave me a place to start from. I applied then into the college in Athlone and got the Dear John letter, because the way in which it was all set up was gammy. Like, they actually set it up before I got out. So they said, we've got a lad from prison, so he's coming for an interview and all that kind of stuff. So when they met me at the gate, they actually brought me off campus and just asked me about my background. They didn't want to know about what I wanted to learn.
Oh, wow.
So it was a bad experience then. And then, look, I couldn't get work. I couldn't get onto the housing list. I couldn't volunteer. I started a business with myself and a friend. We had this idea of an entertainment guide in prison. We were putting the entertainment guide onto the trains in Dublin, and you could read about Galway before you get there. Galway 365 was a magazine. We got broke even just talking about it, myself and himself. We got the first edition out, and we were putting them onto the train without permission. And there was a little map on the back of the magazine, so you know where to go to spend your money when you leave. Got the second edition out, doubled up. Third edition, he disappeared. Business was wrecked, and so that happened as well. So between it all, I remember I got these really smart clothes and shoes, and I walked the heels off my shoes looking for work, spending all my dough every week. And I remember one night I got home and I opened the fridge, and all that was in it was a light. I said, I'm going to have to do something here. So I just spiraled backwards then, and then I was in way over my head. And
just goes to show, it doesn't matter how hard you try to turn your life around.
Yeah.
Like, you can do everything. Society plays a big
change.
role. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
Like,
somebody has to give you a chance.
Yeah.
they do. Like, somebody has to take a punt on you, give you the course, give you the job, give you the graft. You know, just to take a punt on you. And then when you get that opportunity, then you grab it with both hands. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, so the only opportunity that came to me that time, anyways, I took on with an international gang who do pretend tarmac. So I did that for a while in France and Germany, and I ended up then, I actually done 2 weeks homeless in France, and then had fallen out with them fellas, and ended up then tramping it over to England and over to Manchester. And I think I told you this before, yeah. I was over, a friend took me in Manchester, and I got a job in a debt management company, of all things, like, and I up to my eyeballs in debts for drugs. So wasn't, and that didn't last. And then I done about 3 months then in the UK, then homeless, and got back. My family found me, got me home, and then I got into a treatment centre for mental health, and yeah, I spent about 6 weeks in that. And then I was back around June, back where I was from. And the last thing I wanted to be doing was putting anybody through anything again. So I found a bit of accountability there, and then found education, started going for long walks, and then got my first job through a friend. And
What was it?
in a distribution company in Masterlink Logistics. They're a new two pot house.
Sounds very gangsterish again.
Yeah, well, look, distribution was my skill. So
It's the transferable skills, isn't
transferable
it?
skill, yeah. I was planning transport with proper goods in them.
Yeah.
And and like I built my entire team then at night time out of people that were before the courts and that type of thing. And like they are all still working since. Some have moved on into different jobs and that type of thing. But like Masterlink was a great start for me.
Masterlink, yeah.
Yeah, I started on the floor, then I got the supervisor's role, then I was planning the transport, and then I was managing the night shift. And not so much as a washer went missing, like, and we were all what would be kind of ruled out in a job application situation, you know, if vetting was required. So I got all the way up to that then, and then I started looking around. I wanted to go work in the community. I was studying community development. I got my honours degree in community development, and really struggled to get work, and then I found an auctioneer, Pat Callan in Athenry. He was looking for somebody on days. I applied in. I was the only fella that applied in, and I don't know, we clicked. And he was away for the first week, and then I was away for the second week. And when I came back in, then he was sitting inside the door. He'd been doing a bit of Googling. And he said, "What's this about?" It was a thing, he pulled up the article for...
Googled you.
Yeah, but I've had this article taken down since, but it was the article for hitting the guard in the courthouse. He said, "What's this about?" I said, "That's only the tip of the iceberg." I said, "I'll tell you the rest," like, and I did. And he said, "Look," he said, "half my fault." He said, "I didn't ask you about Gardavetting." He said, "You've been upfront and honest." He said, "And we all have things in our past that we're not very proud of." He said, "The guy said, you seem to know what you're doing, so let's give it a go." Like, and he actually had RTE when they were launching the social enterprise and employment strategy. He actually let them come into his office.
I seen you on the news that time.
Yeah, and discuss like creating employment opportunities for people with criminal histories, and like it was absolutely of no benefit to his business, but he still took part.
Sounds
in
like
it.
a good man.
Yeah, so I was only talking to him the other night. Like, we're always on the phone. We go for the odd bite to eat, and he's a nice man. Like, he's a good friend, and there's not many employers like that out there. So,
but you're doing your best now to get more people like that, to engage with employers and to help people coming from prison to get employment, and to work with organisations around policies around working with people that have previous convictions. But we'll talk about all that stuff after we have a cup of coffee and go to the toilet.
Yeah.
10 minutes? Yeah, perfect. We'll horse into it there, so again. Now, it's a 8:15, we go till about 10 past, and then we'll open it up if you have any questions. Think about if you want to say something, would be great to get some feedback or to get some sort of questions or comments from you at the end. Actually, we ever had a conference and somebody says, "This is more of a comment than a question," and you know there's digs coming. Then we don't want no comments instead of questions.
Yeah.
But Damien, talk to us about Spare Nua.
Okay. Well, look, I suppose it'd probably be just as well to talk about Galway Rural Development as well. So Spare Nua, first of all, was like a college project. So I had a real problem with Gardavetting everywhere I went. You know, everybody I know that has a bit of a background had the same problem, and I always felt like something needed to change. So I wrote Spare Nua in UCC. It was a master's for a master's in cooperatives and social enterprise, and I was looking at barriers to taking up employment, and Gardavetting being it. And I always felt like we needed some sort of a certificate that we could use when we're looking for jobs or looking for housing or looking for volunteering or any of that type of thing, or indeed getting into college. And I wrote the paper, Spare Nua, Life After Prison for the Reformed Individual, Barriers or Opportunities. There was loads of barriers and no opportunities, so that's kind of where the idea came from. And as part of that, then I interviewed senators, Gardaí, governors, prison governors, probation officers. The probation officer that I mentioned earlier, he took part in it years later. I just rang the phone, "What do you need?" And he was still there, like, and I hadn't spoken to him in a long time. There was people from IASIO, people from Care After Prison, people from Pathways as well, and about 13 respondents, and every single one of them said, "You know, you're making a lot of sense in what you're saying here. Gardavetting is a problem. It does exclude. It does keep people locked out." And so rather than it gathering dust on a shelf, I thought about ways to bring it to life. And I seen this link online. It was with Social Entrepreneurs Ireland. It was share your idea for social change. I said, I'll share a bit of it just in case you run away with it all. So I put up a bit of the application. I kind of described the problem, described some ideas around it, and they read it and they liked it, and they invited me onto the academy. I was still working in the auctioneers as well when I got the invite, and Pat let me go upstairs, do my thing on the laptop, and he said, because he could get what I was saying as well, and on his time, you know, he didn't have to do that either, which was very, very good of him too. Yeah. And because he knew this whole thing mattered to me anyways. So we took part in this like 3-month program where we were talking about kind of business structure, storytelling, all this type of thing. And then at the end, you got to pitch for funding. So we all pitched for funding at the end. You had to work on like this 5-minute pitch and all this kind of stuff. It was all new to me at the time. And I remember like a couple of weeks had passed and I was kind of wondering, is this going to happen or whatever? And around the same time, I seen an advertisement with Galway Rural Development, which is a local development company, much like, what are the local development companies down here now, say?
City Partnership.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. So I seen it, and they had this social enterprise regeneration program. They were looking for a coordinator for it, so I applied in for that at the same time. But I took a notion, and one day I sent an email to Social Entrepreneurs Ireland. I said, listen, thank you for having me on the programme. I know it's a bit of a touchy subject. Just wondering what was the outcome of the pitch. And I got the most funding out of the whole lot. I couldn't believe it, yeah. Yeah, so I couldn't believe it. And they really, really got where I was coming from. So that was enough to kind of put the website up there and develop a bit of a program and that type of stuff and get it kind of out there. And after that, then we did we went on to the Action Lab, which was something more of the same, but kind of bringing it on a bit. Also, Kickstart was around. So Kickstart was like a funding initiative to create employment opportunities for people with criminal histories. They had 2 strands. One was job creation and the other one was for feasibilities, to test ideas and that type of thing. So we went down that route and we met Sam Marketti. He done the work for us on the feasibility study, and we got the funding to do that really good document, and we kind of had a way to market then to kind of create traded income through tendering for government grants and that type of stuff. So one of them was we successfully tendered for government grants to the Irish Prison Service to deliver 4 different contracts around personal development, life skills, motivational speaking, and coping with bereavement. So they're ongoing now at the minute. And
so them courses are ongoing, is it?
Yeah.
And is people that have criminal records can access it? Is that who it's only for?
It's being delivered inside in prison.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. And
so you have staff or members of your team going into the prison delivering these modules?
The collaborators more so than members of staff. So people would have... So when I seen the different tenders, I said, I know somebody that can do that, I know somebody that can do that, I know some... So I said, let's all get on a call here. So there's about 18 people on the call at one stage. Yeah. And I said, who wants to do this? So a few put their hands up and we did it. Equal Ireland actually does the life skills with us. I studied with Equal Ireland, they got me the job in the college that turned me down. Like, I teach in the college that turned me down all those years ago now as well today. I'm back as a member of staff. The Equal Ireland do that. Liz Gleeson has a podcast then called Shapes of Grief. It's about coping with, discussing bereavements and that type of thing. She goes and she does group work with people around kind of coping with bereavements. Fellow social entrepreneur as well, from Social Entrepreneurs Ireland. That's where we met. And then Ronan Conway does like the personal development. So really, really interesting approach. He would have been on that Gaelic and the Joy. If any of you have seen that, it was a 3-part series, but there's a guy, he gets them all standing in a circle and he asks them a question, about their past. Did you ever experience this? And they'd all take a step in. And then did you ever experience that? And then they take another step in. Then all of a sudden they're in there like that. They're all the same. They've all experienced the same things. And he says, you're not that different from each other. So let's work together to get what we can out of the situation we find ourselves in. A really interesting approach. So that happened. Anyways, with that, we got additional support then from Rethink Ireland to develop a companion app. And what we did with that then was Patrick actually applied into the Bubble program, which is a global program. And they had 1,300 applications worldwide, and he got down to the last 4, and he got to pitch in New York after developing the companion app, Jammy Outlook.
What is that?
It's basically, on the app, it's like a digital resource for the peer mentors. So people are the people that are being mentored. So there's a couple of things on it. You build your certificate of commitment to change on it. You get different training videos.
It's certificate for change. Explain that to us.
So the certificate of commitment to change, what we do is we look at the whole person view, like around areas of kind of self-motivation, self-direction, educational attainment, health and well-being. 7 different parts we look at, and we build a narrative around each of them steps, and it's like a portfolio of commitment to change and personal development. And that
So it kind of counterbalances the criminal record, you know what I mean? There's all that negativity in the past, but then there's all this stuff here.
Positive stuff.
Yeah, because the negative is only really one thing. It's just one. It's a historic view of who we were, you know. But the certificate or the portfolio commitment to change, that's a journey from there. You know, there's all this positive stuff that goes unrecognised.
I've a live thing here now for you off the top of my head, right?
Yeah.
I was invited to speak at a prison in California and a university in California, all paid for and everything, from the 28th of February to the 5th of March, a couple of weeks. And we were up in the embassy, the US embassy, just Monday this week, and we were declined the visa. Now, we can apply for a waiver, which means you don't get the visa, but you can go for specific dates for a specific reason, you know. But it'll be several months before we get a decision. But in our support and documentation, something like that would be very powerful. That here's the criminal record, but here's the thing what you're talking about.
Yeah,
so maybe I might talk to you about that afterwards myself.
Absolutely, because that's the piece, you see.
But that's what it's there for.
Yeah, it's for everything. Like where Garda vetting holds you back, this is the process for you, and it's an ongoing assessment model. Like it evolves with you. Do you know what I mean? Nobody stays the same. Nothing stays the same. Everything change is constant. Change goes both ways as well. Like, but for the most part, like, you know, we can definitely validate people's commitment to change based on what we see. Like we collate it and hand it over.
And is there any are organisations on board with it? Are organisations, like, let's say now I'm working in, or I run a cafe. Let's say Liam runs a cafe.
Yeah.
And he's been a victim of crime in the past, so he's very aware of, you know, that type of world. And somebody comes in looking for a job, Liam takes a shine into him, he wants to give him the job, but then they have this criminal record. Like, do you engage with Liam, or does the individual represent themselves, or how does it work?
We do both. So, like, if employers have an issue, we're doing a lot of good work with employers at the minute now. It'd be wrong not to give a shout out to Mr. Price. Like, at the minute, they're and Indeed as well. Brian Walsh and Indeed as well. Indeed are doing all these fair chance jobs at the minute. There's going to be a big event with Gashka, Indeed, and with ourselves are going to be at it as well towards the end of the year. But it'll be all employers in the room, open to hiring people with criminal histories. We're actually trying to build a forum of employers as well with the Department of Justice.
It might be worthwhile actually to present, if we got an opportunity, the Cork Chamber.
Yeah.
You know, wouldn't that be worthwhile?
Well, it's actually we're talking to DSP about that in April, so there's something that we can pull back on that very topic. So I'm bringing employers into it, so I think there's something we can do there as well.
100%.
You would imagine every city and county would have a chamber of commerce.
We've done it on our own. Yeah.
So maybe it was something that we could do here down the line. Maybe.
But just going back to your question about whether or not it's been recognised, this certificate of commitment to change. So it was written into the government strategy, which is huge. So this idea, this notion of like Tim Griffiths said it to me. He's moved on from Social Entrepreneurs Ireland.
Yeah, I know Tim.
Yeah, but he said it to me at the time. He said, like, we have social entrepreneurs that do really, really good work in their areas and in their communities and that type of thing. He said, but what you've described to me is systems change, which is much broader and bigger. And he said, very, very rare. So like one of the I was like I was holding a newborn child, holding the government strategy with our idea written into it. Like, they have the words certificate of commitment to change written into
all
the
your hard work is validated in the policy document.
Yeah, so that was launched there just before Christmas, along with partnerships with other organisations like IASIO, and they're going to be working with us on our app. And we're also doing this. We're emulating a Norwegian model called The Way Back, and it's very much membership focused. So we're looking at trying to open up a hub in Dublin, Limerick and Cork, where people just drop in and it's a social piece. There's no supervisor, you're not being supervised, you're there because you want to check in an informal way, and you can hang around as well and, you know, be with people that...
There's a serious lack of a third space for people that don't drink. Like, if you don't drink and you're not in a 12-step group, let's say, like, you have very limited opportunities. You have your home life and you have your work life, but we need a third space, something like this. Do you know what I mean? Something that's open in the evenings, where we can come together, socialise and connect. And me and Liam often spoke about it. There's a lot of loneliness in the world Do you know what I mean? So I think something like that, where people that have a shared background can come together in no judgment and just kind of socialise. Where it's not going to a pub, or it doesn't involve getting out of your head, you know.
Can I give a shout out to somebody that's doing really good work in
Fire
that space? Mags Dillon from the Western Region.
Oh yeah, I
Drug and
hosted
Alcohol
her conference the last couple of years
Yeah,
up in Galway.
that's right, you were there. Yeah. So
They had nobody up in Galway to do it.
no. I just wanted you to come. That was it. But basically, like, obviously there's smart recovery and all that kind of stuff, and she'd do a lot of facilitation around that. But like the whole social piece that's going on around it now, like people meet up for runs, walks, hill walk, and all that kind of stuff. And a coffee shop like this, we had like a table quiz and all that kind of stuff. And
they're all vital.
Yeah, but it's smart recovery is interesting in that, like, there's no 12 steps, there's no religion, you get to check in on yourself from time to time. I do it. I tend from time to time, and I get a lot from it. It makes me reevaluate where I'm at as well. Like, and yes, it is a good.
You don't need to be in crisis to seek support.
No. It's good to do that from time to time. Do you know what I mean? And you need the odd reminder as well, like, you know, of yourself, and you know where the pinch points are, and you know, keep an eye on it. But so a huge, like, she's doing fantastic work in Galway, and there is that social piece around it. And Galway will be first recovery city in Ireland.
Galway are ahead of the curve in many respects.
Yeah.
In terms of recovery.
Yeah.
And the supports, and you know, getting it out there. You know, like there's a lot of things going on. The recovery awards they do there now for the last couple of years. You know, things that not happening in Cork.
Yeah. Well, I got nominated for one of them as well. It was a nice surprise.
It
was for an inspiring professional. I was always a bit of a professional bollocks, but it's nice to get that now on.
But it is, because you're doing fantastic work. Like,
but you know if you're after coming out of treatment, or you're in a day program, and you've all this negativity in your past, and then you're at an award ceremony like that, where you're called up, you're presented with a lovely bit of crystal or something like that, and they're giving you positivity and affirmations. That's great for your self-esteem. It might be the first time, like when I was doing that event now in Galway, you could see some of the lads and the ladies coming up, and it was a huge thing for them.
Yeah, super proud.
And I think back of when I was in rehab, and at the end of the detox, 8 weeks off methadone, and then they like do a graduation and things like that. And you know, when I graduated from my masters, that meant as much to me then than the masters did. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we can't dismiss the small things, because at the time they were huge, aren't they?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, sure. It's momentum building. Like I shared a post on my LinkedIn there the last day when I came back from the UK. That was 15 years ago now, and it was when I got my son back into my life. And I look at the picture and I can see my head is mangled. Like, I can tell by the makeup of my face that I was after going through some seriously rough shit. Like, but it was when I got him back into my life. Like, them first steps, like, will always be my finest achievements, you know, because that was the start of something different. I was there for the people that mattered. I was there for my boy, you know, and it's been literally onwards and upwards from there. So they were the biggest steps I ever took, and the proudest steps.
What's the plan for you for the next couple of years? What's the projection, or are you working on?
Well, look, I work on a number of different things. There's some big projects coming up. Like, obviously my work with my day work is with Galway Rural Development. I do all this peer mentoring stuff and the prison work, and I teach as well in the college, but it's all kind of intertwined. I suppose long term, like, it's I'm looking for retirement mode, really. Do you know what I mean? So if I get a few bits and pieces ironed out, like personal bits and pieces ironed out, I'll just kind of, I'll probably take a step back and just do, well, I am doing what I want to do, but I'm doing too much of what I want to do. You know, so I just want to kind of
get a balance.
Yeah. So like tomorrow now, I'll be tools down. Like, I've no choice anyway. There's no internet access. But I go to a play with my son and my partner. The Spark Catchers have a really nice art event on for young people in the Mall and Tuam. So I'm going to that. And then obviously I'm coming back down here on Sunday.
Yeah, there's a festival here, Law and the Breed, on Sunday. Actually, we're going to bring Liam up now to talk a bit about that. But thank you, Damien. Both of us.
Thank you both. Thank you both.
There we are.
So, Liam, you're the owner of this fine establishment.
Sinead.
How's the farm?
Form was good. This is great. Thanks for everyone coming. And
It's a
great
nice
to
little
get
venue.
The ball rolling. It's very cosy. This corner is built for music, really.
Yeah. How long are you
The
here?
style of the old pub. 10 years now.
Go ahead.
Yeah. 10 years since Halloween.
My birthday's on Halloween.
Go on.
Yeah, we'll have to do a 10th anniversary on my 40th.
Yeah, look, it was an auspicious time to get it going. We opened it with a Cayley. And, it was always about marking the old Celtic calendar, the Celtic wheel of the seasons, so that's Lawn of Reed now coming up this weekend. We're very excited about that. We've done it for the last 3 years.
What can people expect?
Well, the idea is it's about, I suppose, celebrating the cultural diversity of the area. So we have people from the Traveller Visibility Group down here in John Street. They're going to be coming. They're going to be showing us how to make paper flowers and talking about the tradition. They were here last year and we had a great day. We're friends. We'll have a Bridget's Cross making workshop out on the street. There's an artist, David Damien, that's going to be doing little clay heads for kids, which we're going to incorporate through the CART project into the Witherlings Lane Art Gallery, which we'll be doing up the side. And yeah, there's just music all day long, from flamenco and fire juggling to there's jazz. There's a guy doing gospel singing, trad obviously. We have the Indian community here next door. They're going to be coming out singing some of their own traditional songs, and that's the gist of it really.
Hopefully we get the weather for it now.
We're going to do some of the old games down along the quay wall, so we'll draw out a few hopscotch.
Kiss and torture.
We can get a bit of that going.
I don't know, is that even appropriate anymore, is it? Consent.
We did, yeah. So the simple old stuff, the pitch and toss and stuff like that. So some games for the kids and face painting and exactly. And look, the idea about this is just bringing things back a little bit. We're in a digital age where everybody is disconnected and connected at the same time, or vice versa, whatever way you want to look at it. And it's having a huge effect, and we see it daily. That's a lot of what we do here in the cafe. The staff are brilliant. They're interacting every day with people one-to-one. It's real human contact. It's real, we've talked about it ourselves. It's like welcoming one of your own family members in the door. When you see somebody come in, you never know where somebody is at in their day, and especially with the elderly, but also people come in, if they're looking in that space, a little gentle hello. It makes an awful difference to somebody's day, Yeah,
do you know what I'm thinking of there now? We were out canvassing for the election there, the general election. We were out knocking on doors and stuff like that. But the amount of loneliness out there, Liam. Elderly people just wanting to stop and chat to you on the door like about regular stuff, and sometimes you indulge them and then you have to go, but there's so much loneliness there.
It's frightening. And also, like, loneliness and isolation has been treated as, and then obviously it leads to depression, but then it's been medicated. So you have people taking that edge off where really it's just the human contact. We had the post offices, we had the pub. These were points of contact for people. They could go pension on a Wednesday, they'd have the chats, they'd find out the news in the area. It's all been taken away in the last 20 years for that demographic particularly. Like, we'd have a huge sensitivity to the elderly here for that reason. And
just trying to bring a bit of that back.
And the irony of it as well, it's the young people as well. While so connected on the phones and hundreds of friends and no physical human contact, we need it. We need that smile, we need the eye contact, these little facial expressions you pick up on people. They feed into it. That's what we're designed to do, And that's breaking down. So look, the festival is really about that, celebrating the cultural diversity, but getting also, it's like the community safety thing. Like, the community is safer when we know thy neighbour, treat thy neighbour as you would yourself, or a family member. So I do feel that's, especially with the way things are changing so fast, with, the amount of people coming into the country now looking for protection, for safety, running away from conflict zones, etc., that if people are left into their little pockets, it's the Irish way to go and meet people, but things have changed and got, particularly the last couple of years, it's got, and media's controlling that as well, I think, and algorithms even control it for people, where there's like us and them. We're all the bloody same. We all,
the world is very
cry,
polarised.
It's blood, sweat, tears, but we do the same things, and I think division is kind of bred into us from a young age. We touched on that earlier. But the us, the them, I'm a this fan, you're a this fan, And that just adds to the separation and the loneliness and the isolation that's out there, I think, you know.
So what about Cart?
Yeah, so this all came from this corner, James, in a conversation with you last year. We were having a coffee and what could we do, etc. And you brought it up that this fund is there, and I was like, oh, get some money, I have to get ahead. So it's a community safety fund. There was money.
We were like saying, who says crime don't pay?
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's the proceeds of crime.
So it is that full circular economy. That money is coming back in, and we're going to try and do something within the community, which will be all of the north side, right the way across from here, all the way up down the Glen over to Mayfield. That demographic that you talked about, the 16 to 24. So, you know, CEART, CART means just, but it's about community. Community. I wrote a few notes on it there. So community empowerment, arts, respect, and trust. Yeah. So like community, how to build community outside of social media. So, you know, re-engaging people so that, you know, working in groups, get them cooperating in something. We have loads of ideas where one of them, for example, now is to approach CIE and ask for the school buses in the summer. They're sitting up in Capel doing nothing. Give us the school bus, we'll put people in the bus, we'll bring them up to Galties, we'll bring them down to Garrettstown.
Like the play scheme,
the sailing, get them working together, cooperating, put the phones away for the day. That kind of stuff. Now, it's a work in progress, but the empowerment thing then is starting with self-empowerment. So we're considering reaching out to the David Lynch Foundation on that. So like giving people, you know, breath work practices. Transcendental meditation is what the David Lynch Foundation works with. Giving that to prisoners, soldiers with PTSD, etc. Those type of skills, and also I think a kind of a digital wake-up course, maybe teaching young people about the reality of what they're holding in their hands. You know, the blue screens are blue because they were designed by the gambling industry, for instance, to keep you heightened state of alert, looking for the dopamine. We're all addicted to these things now. We're not given the proper information about what they are. They're not smart. They're smart in the sense of keeping you engaged, but they're doing untold damage out there. So it's about bringing gently awareness around that and the use of it in the evenings, being able to maybe turn it off or get a filter on the screen. For sleep, because sleep, anxiety, it's leading into, you know, coupled with, you know, diet, etc. So I think a little bit of that will be one thing. And then goal setting, affirmations, you know, what you're talking about, Damien, making that commitment to change. I think that's where we can, you have a huge amount of work there.
It's a lot of stuff what Damien is doing, but preventative measures. So these young people haven't went to prison yet. And it's trying to engage them before they go up. Because when you get into that cycle of courts and prison, it's very hard to get out of it. Whereas if we can get them before that, we could prevent a lot of
something struck me there, even without going to prison. But if you start doing things that are wrong, and the uncles are after me, the father, you go to that point where, oh, well, I've gone that far now, so I might as well keep going.
The fuck it attitude.
The fuck it. I've done it now. And what you mentioned really resonated as well, that, you know, with the bullies and the whatever. And it's not really you, and the sadness and the isolation and loneliness. You're behaving this way to create a sense of, it's about protecting yourself really out there and creating an identity that people can relate to or stay away from or whatever it might be. But then you go home and you're lonely and you're kind of go, what am I like? You know, that feeling. But I think at that point, that making a commitment to change there and be supported in doing that. You know, and then we're talking about the arts, so using the arts for that, and that's a kind of a broad stroke arts, so from street art to digital art to physical, you know, it could be dance, movement, performance, singing, exploring those avenues, martial arts, you know.
So if let's say there was a martial artist in Cork, for example, that wanted to get involved,
absolutely.
Like, lads, I'll take a group of young fellas there on a 6-week course or whatever.
I had this conversation the other day with somebody because I just had the idea came in and they were like, my gym is open to you. You can have it. And his brother has actually done a lot of mentoring for the last number of years around the city as well. So he's a personal trainer, well, physical educator, personal trainer. So he wants to get involved as well now. I think we can bring a lot in with that.
So at the moment we're working on a website and things like that, but people can make informal inquiries to us through Instagram or call in for a cup of coffee.
Yeah, we're going to go, because of the demographic that we're reaching out to, website, use TikTok, use Instagram, use these things in a kind of a fun, engaging way. For people to kind of something they can relate to. So we will be looking for perhaps people that are just maybe in the system already or just in recovery perhaps that are young, they want to get involved, come into the mentoring circle with us, and we'll develop something for people then out of that.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Tim.
Yeah.
Does anybody want to say a comment? Or ask a question for Damien or Liam or anybody?
I think for me, like, I enjoyed tonight, but I think that...
You talking to that, Sheila, please.
I think, one of the things that resonates with me around what I'm hearing tonight is, like, I'll often say that the opposite of addiction is connection. It's not recovery, but that, because that is all about connection, and I suppose that's what's great to hear about tonight as well. But I think, and it's also that this is can be a long process with people. It's taken a long time to get involved, and for things to go wrong, and it can take you need to be able to be present and be investing in people as they're coming out of that. And if that means somebody ends up back in prison as part of that recovery process, you stay with them in that. Like I've a young lad at the moment who every time he would have been in prison would have copious numbers of P19s, which would be punishments. On his last sentence he has no P19s. That's a huge growth, and he came out of prison and he spent 7 days on the streets before we could get him into a hostel, but he's sustaining himself now. And things are moving forward. But that whole piece was when he came back into me, when he came out, he said, I kept thinking what you were saying, and I'm going, what the hell, what did I say? But, those pieces of just sowing those seeds all along are hugely important in people's lives, and having the people you can return to are vitally important. And I think, spaces like this cafe as well allows that to happen. And that community piece is hugely important.
Thank you, Sheila. We have a lady down the back there.
I'm no lady. Hi, I'm not going to say this is a comment, not a question, but it's a mixture. Firstly, thanks. It was really interesting. Thank you, Damien. I suppose one of the things that struck me listening to it is this Garda vetting. So leaving aside going for a job, let's say in McDonald's, but, working with youth groups and everything, and everybody's concerned about Garda vetting. But what people are really thinking about are people who are a threat to children. And of course, the irony is we all know who was the threat to children for the past 50 years, and just because somebody has a criminal conviction for GBH or drug dealing doesn't mean they're a threat to 15-year-olds. But I suppose this is what I'd be interested to hear what you think. I went to a couple of sessions with Siobhan Lambert. I know she was on Sharon. Sharon, she's brilliant. And she said something to me that never occurred to me before. She said that if you're from a certain class in society, it's not even so much that you're more likely to fall into criminality, but you're more likely to be prosecuted by the guards, and you're more likely to come up before the courts. And I suppose, I don't know about you, but that's the thing that makes my blood boil. It's like and there are bad people out there who never end up in prison, but you get a kid who ends up in trouble, whatever, he's drunk and disorderly, he beats up his friend, and he goes into court, and he's got his mother and father there, and he's got the school teacher, and they say he's a great lad and he plays GA and all of that. He's likely to be treated differently, and anyway, I suppose I was just interested what you thought about that, because I think there's no magic solution, but I do think people are treated differently, I guess.
You're not sure. Give it to me back.
Oh, yeah. You're not a smaller.
Thank you to the speakers. I just think he covered a lot of ground tonight, and as you were speaking I did try to give my full attention, but I couldn't help myself from thinking either. You spoke about identity, you spoke about cultural norms, you spoke about fitting in, but you all spoke about education. You spoke about the motivation to change. So I don't really have my question articulated, but I think what I'm trying to say is that we have to challenge the social norms on what's positive, and we have to accept that a lot of the negatives are actually positives because we've survived them. And we have to also acknowledge that not everybody has solid foundations in their lives to build from. And you spoke about isolation and loneliness, and a lot of the older people who I work with, their identity is challenged because they performed in the workplace based on what was expected from them, and they conformed. And now that they're in retirement, they're now faced with, who am I? And their identity is based on their culture, it's based on their location, and that's what leads to the loneliness and the isolation, because they feel that they don't fit in to the culture and the environment where they're located. So I just think there's an awful lot there. But what I would like, what I suppose my question would be, is that can we put something into the education system where there is a yardstick to help us to focus and identify our motivation to change? Because what might be change for you could be a massive progress for someone else, or it could be a negative for someone else. So, you know, we need to kind of get similar ideas of what we mean by all these terminologies. But thanks very much. Keep up the good work.
Nick Nugent. Yeah, thanks very much. Thanks, Damien, in particular. That was really educational and inspirational. Fair play to you. But it was just a conversation at the start that kind of really brought me back to when I was a teenager. You had all the different, there was kind of a group for everyone. You had the Cure heads, you had the Depeche Modes, you had the Metalers, and everybody had somewhere to fit in. But you can guess what I was into now, but I was a Cure head, But it was interesting at the time, actually, being into the Cure or Depeche Mode actually allowed youngsters who were a bit different, actually, to kind of fit in, or were creative. We were all dressed in black, and it's amazing thinking back. This is about 30, giving away my age now, I was 50 last week, 35 years ago, and there was fellas I knew that were following the Cure, and they're dressed in black, big hair, dyed black, and wearing makeup. And, so it was interesting times. But it's how people wanted to fit in different ways, and those dynamics. And I think for being 15 or 16 and in schools at the time, I think it has to be a space. And even now, for youngsters that are different, and how, a longing to be different. And also on the flip side of that as well, maybe youngsters that are seen as difficult, or they're challenging and they're acting out, because there's often a reason behind that, and maybe it's because the foundations aren't solid at home and all that. And schools, I think, you might know more than me, are evolving in how to reach those two different categories, I would hope. The youngsters are different, the youngsters are challenging. I think looking at it closely, I think Terence McSweeney's doing a lot of good work in that way. Maybe that hadn't, maybe way back, in terms of what to do up there, the Rainbow Club and other things, reaching youngsters who might feel they're different, or youngsters who are trying to fit in, or youngsters that are challenging. So I don't even know what it's like now, and you have the social media. That wasn't there when I was 15 or 16, so I can see my nephews who are that age, and a lot of time is on the phone, a lot of time is on devices. Yeah. When I was their age, we were out in the field kicking football. It's way different now. What's that doing to youngsters at that age? I just don't know. And just finally, I suppose I was volunteer with Samaritans for 6 or 7 years. Do a lot of work as well with Shine Light, suicide, mental health. Loneliness is a massive thing. When I was on the phones with Samaritans, I would say there's perception there that people are ringing in that are real in crisis or that are suicidal. You do get those calls. But I say 50-60% were people that were just lonely. Just looking to chat to somebody, to break up the day, break up an hour. So it's a massive thing. That's what I say, loneliness is a killer, and I think it is. And I think, every so often we would go to the tea dances, the older people, and they love them just to get out of the house. But I think loneliness is affecting maybe society that we're not really putting our finger on yet, So, yeah.
Thanks, Mick.
Thanks, Mick. In schools today, they have school completion programs and homeschool liaison officers and things like that. But it's the ethos of the school it varies depending school to school and principal to principal. So you have Phil up in Knocknaheeny doing Trojan work, very understanding of the backgrounds, any issues with the children that crop up. It's not a disaster, it's not catastrophized. We work through it and things like that. Whereas in other schools, they're expelled or suspended. And that's a problem. There's no standard, you know what I mean? And trauma-informed training, like a friend of mine, Dave Cashman from Blackrock, he did his PhD, set up a trauma training for teachers, So it'll be to the credit of the school that brings him in to but not all the schools will do it. That's the thing. Like we did, I won't name no communities, not to stigmatise anybody, but we did research in a community that was an affluent community, but had a lot of issues with the young people. And we went in and we did an area profile to really strengthen. We were going to the Department of Children and Youth Affairs at the time for funding for youth service for this area. And as part of it, we interviewed community workers, social workers, principals, and they didn't want to acknowledge that there was an issue in the community. So if they don't acknowledge it, they don't have to do anything about it. Whereas in Knocknaheeny, there's no point in not acknowledging it because everybody knows it. But I think it's to our credit that it's all out there. Because then we've nothing to hide. We are who we are and we work. Whereas in some communities, everybody knows it's there, but there's a shame there, or they hide it better, and there's no acknowledgement of it. And the kids suffer along because the adults want to keep up appearances. I don't know. Do you want to take the comment on Garda vetting, Gillian?
What was the comment again? Sorry.
Hold that up to your mouth now. It was just about Garda vetting around, because you had negative experience with Garda vetting and going for jobs and stuff like that. And let's say, for example, in Cork North Lee social work department, there was a social worker up there, access to vulnerable children, paedophile. Yeah. He'd know Garda vetting. Yeah. So the Garda vetting, what did Garda vetting tell you? Yeah. Nothing really. And if you have, I'll let you take it.
Yeah, thanks, James. So I suppose my experience of Garda vetting is I have a criminal record. Again, now dating back to when I was young, I ended up in Obertstown. That was the start of it, and then progressed on to Limerick Prison. But when I turned my life around and went back into education, which was my saving grace, really, that provided me with plenty of opportunities, and I'm very blessed. But a lot of hard work was put in. I put a lot of work into getting my degree and I suppose just finding myself, really. And then when it comes to employment, I met a lot of, I suppose I experienced a lot of barriers where Garda vetting was concerned. I remember sitting in an interview and it was going so well. There was discussions about contracts, start dates and everything else. And at the end of the interview, it came up about Garda vetting. And I was very honest. I said, look, there is stuff there, but I'm no threat. And it was working with vulnerable people. I said, I'm no threat to anybody. I've done all of this work on myself, a lot of personal development work, and now I have my education. But the person that was interviewing me was taken back, really, when I disclosed that I had convictions. And they went and he spoke to his board of management. And then there was talk of me writing a letter explaining myself, which I did. And then it was like, no, at the end of it. And it's so disheartening, when you're after putting so much work in and you're trying to move on with your life, you're trying to create a better life for yourself, and then you're met with that. And it wasn't the first time that those things had happened, and I know it's happening to a lot of other people. But I suppose I was persistent, I kept going, and I had a lot of support, and Sheila's here tonight, and fantastic support, the Cork Alliance, and with me the whole way through it. And it's only for people like Sheila. If I didn't have that support, I don't know would I have. I suppose I could have said, feck it, and just went backwards. And I know, Damien, you mentioned this, that, that was kind of a turning point for you as well, where you just went backwards at one stage. But unless we have supports in place for people, I needed somebody to push me along at the time. Because I remember I came home and I was devastated, literally devastated that I had gone through all of this. I had wrote the letter, pleading my case, and then I was met with, no, thank you. We can't take a chance on you. And as James mentioned, there is people going into positions with vulnerable people, and they're predators. But just because they're not in the system and they don't have a criminal record, they get away with it. Absolutely. But it's just about, I suppose, pushing through. And anybody that is watching the podcast that is experiencing that, there are people out there. I'm very blessed. I have a fantastic job today. There is people out there and organisations out there that are willing, and they want people like me in their organisations because they see the value of what I'm bringing to the table. I was one of those young people we're talking about, the 16-year-olds, 24-year-olds. I was chaotic, and it wasn't that I wanted that life. It was just unfortunate for me. I was born into that. But it's great to be part of this project so we can reach those children, young people. Yeah. Sheila, did you want to say something?
Just to say,
Sorry, Gillian, just to say that the piece about the Garda vetting is people often believe there's a misconception, misunderstanding about Garda vetting that if it comes back with convictions on it, that means you can't be employed. That's not what it means at all. It means now you know what the convictions are, but it doesn't stop you employing anybody at any stage. And I employ people, Damien has, across the years, there is no issue with employing people with convictions, but there's a misunderstanding about what the actual that statement actually is about.
Because go on, Damien.
Yeah, just really quickly to touch on your point about kind of certain people showing up in Garda vetting and stuff like that. I've had to do an awful lot of work on myself, because obviously, like, you come into contact with people that have done some really, really bad things in prison. One of the bits of learning that I've done recently was what we're finding now is more and more young people that might be socially awkward and that type of thing. They do one thing untoward in an intimate situation because they're awkward anyways, and then they're winding up getting like an offence, and then they're put on a list, and they're not really that. They just did something that they shouldn't have done, but didn't know any better, which is a lot of learning in that now for me, because like I would have been, like, I have hang-ups about any kind of like violence towards women or any of that type of thing I do. Like, I really, really struggle with it. But like, when you see situations like that, it's it makes you think a little bit differently about what has really gone on here. And yeah, it's hard work. But if you want to work with people and you want to see them reintegrate and never do anything again, you have to go there and you have to explore that. But for the higher end of the things, like, there is a population in the prison system, maybe 1 or 2%, that are a risk to everybody, including themselves, but they're not going to be out there looking to get onto a course or get into a job. They're probably never going to be in that. They're not looking for that type of thing. They're going to be in a lot of services and that type of stuff. So like Garda vetting, like there's a lot of people caught up in the overreach of Garda vetting and child safety and that type of thing. If you went into the main population of prison, and you said to people, you're now seen as a risk to children and vulnerable adults, like, they'd be offended, because I've met people that robbed food for their kids. I met people that robbed clothes for their kids. I met people that actually went to prison for not paying their TV license. They're punishing people for being poor rather than, criminal. And just on the other piece about the loneliness, like education, like it blocked out that for me. So like, I'd be an avid lifelong learner. Learning happens many ways. I just like, I think learning and lifelong learning is a really, really good way to block out loneliness, because you're never lonely when you're learning. You're learning from your peers, and you'll find your tribe through education. I certainly did.
Can I just make further comment on the Garda vetting?
Briefly.
Sorry.
You're all right.
No, I just feel that Garda vetting does not just impact people looking for paid employment. It impacts families. It impacts participation in your community. It has a huge impact on volunteering at local level. And I've seen families go into crisis because of it. So the children are involved. The parents are being challenged to volunteer. And when they go forward, they have to get Garda clearance. They haven't committed any sexual crimes, or they're not paedophiles or nothing like that. They may have robbed the loaf of bread back in the day. They cannot participate in their child's group because of that. And it's really changing the fragment of our communities and society. And that's what I mean about challenging social norms. So it really, I don't think it's fit for purpose, and it needs to be challenged.
It's a barrier to participation, even if the idea of actually going about the Garda vetting, putting down all your addresses that you ever lived in, like, people don't want to do that, even if they have nothing in their background, So there needs to be common sense around it all too. But it's half 8 on the Friday of a bank holiday weekend. I'm going to let you go, and I appreciate you coming here tonight. And thanks for Liam and the team for hosting us.
Thanks to Damien.
And thank you, Damien. Thank you, Damien.